What was once considered the great American desert became paradise for the new arrivals. Missourians and other folks began to stake claims throughout the lush prairie and along the Kaw River. But they were by no means the first to come to this uncultivated land. Before 1854, the Kansas Territory, as part of the Louisiana Purchase, extended as far west as the Rocky Mountains, as far south as New Mexico, and as far north as Canada. The region was occupied by several tribes of Native Americans, Christian missionaries, soldiers at area forts, and fur traders. Trading posts also served stage lines and freighting companies traveling to California and New Mexico. And some folks had long squatted in the territory with their slaves.
I wish to state a fact of which you may not be aware. That slavery existed in the Kansas Territory long ago, regardless of the exploded Missouri Compromise. But then, we were threatened with becoming the unwilling receptacle of all the filth and scum and offscouring of the East, to pollute our fair land, to preach abolitionism, and to dig underground railroads.
This country, that which the sun shines upon no fairer, with mountains, prairies, and valleys, lying midway between the north and south, east and west, is never to be cursed with the blackest of all villainies, the bitterest of all evils, human slavery.
The first group of New Englanders arrived by steamboat in Kansas City, Missouri on July 24th, 1854. After acquiring provisions, these members of the immigrant aid societies continued by wagon along the California road towards their company towns in the territory.
With the territory thus wrongfully open to slavery, the conflict was transferred from the halls of Congress to the unsettled territories. We determined to accept the new doctrine of popular sovereignty and its promises, to settle these territories and to vote them free, forever.
Ultimately, the New England Immigrant Aid Company was directly responsible for fewer than 2,000 people coming to Kansas. But the propaganda fostered by the company generated a much larger influx of immigrants from other parts of the country. Most came simply to build a home in a new land for themselves and their children.
People have been downright nosy about our beliefs as we walked across Missouri to Kansas. They seemed to sigh with relief when they heard our southern accents. But then they brazenly asked why we don't have our slaves with us. We were just coming to Kansas for the land, not the cause.
Others did come for the cause of slavery, but to free American soil from all blacks.
I believe slavery a civil and moral evil. I believe the mere holding of men as slaves for the purpose of gain is sinful. Leaving as I am a colonizationist and a free soiler, I am in favor of sending free blacks and emancipated slaves with their own consent out of the country, and of keeping slavery out of territories where it does not exist.
There were many a good citizen settling among us from Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio whose notions of slavery were parallel to our own. We weren't contending against the honest but mistaken free soiler. We were contending with the scum and filth of the northern cities, sent here as hired servants to do the wills of others.
No man from the southern extremity of Florida to the northern boundary of Missouri has ever objected to an immigrant simply because he's from the north and preferred free labor to that of slaves.
With the most to lose, Missourians felt the burden of securing the land for the pro-slavery factions, particularly those who lived along the state line. Men raced across the border to create pro-slavery towns to protect themselves and their beliefs. But while some Missourians intended to remain on their claims, many merely squatted on tracts of land to support the cause. They notched trees or arranged half a dozen rails on the ground, calling it a cabin, or posted a scrawl claiming ownership and threatening to shoot trespassers on sight.
The Southerners, then, whether they had law and right on their side or not, were determined to establish squatter sovereignty in Kansas and to carry the vote for slavery. The Northerners were determined that they should not succeed. The government at Washington, controlled by Southern Democrats, preserved a benevolent neutrality for the Southerners' cause and did not interfere until they were compelled to do so by the frightful state of anarchy which eventually prevailed.
Anarchy did prevail. Pro-slavery men destroyed crops and stole horses and cattle from the New Englanders. Many were warned to leave Kansas or suffer the consequences. But to the surprise of the Missourians, the new arrivals stood their ground, and for the first few months in the territory, vigilante justice ruled.